Hi there, everyone. I'm Jennifer Pristina, Head of Marketing for Productable. Thanks so much for joining us. So before I introduce Rachel, I just want to take a minute to talk about this webinar series, The Invisible Enemies of Innovation. So take a look at these enemies. They're right here on your screen. They are some of the most common roadblocks to innovation success. And Productable, in our work with the US Air Force and also with other large corporations, we've come up against every single one of these. But we are just so incredibly confident that we can help you all tackle these enemies head on. And that's what this series is all about, giving innovators and innovation leaders tactical ways to accelerate change. So today we're talking about enemy number 8, perfection over progress. And I really can't think of a better person to come in and share her perspective on this. So Rachel Kuhr Conn is the founder and CEO of Productable. And just personally, as someone who has had the opportunity to work with Rachel for more than a year now, I can say that Rachel's leadership style is truly admirable. And prioritizing progress over perfection is one of the ways that she displays true leadership literally every single day. So quick story, just yesterday, Rachel posted a short video to our team Slack channel, just reminding us that part of building a company is getting things wrong and iterating, then getting them wrong again, then iterating again. And Rachel has experienced this cycle over and over again in her career. She spent 7 years doing academic research on innovation process with the University of Texas and also with MIT. She studied what works, what doesn't, and why innovation success is so difficult. Then she kind of put all of her scientific research and findings into practice, first as an innovation consultant for Fortune 1000 corporations, then as head of innovation for Mark Cuban companies. So needless to say, Rachel has mastered imperfection, and we consider this a huge feat and an example for all innovation leaders and innovators alike. So with that, I'll hand this over to Rachel so she can tell you more about enemy number 8, perfection over progress. You're muted, Rachel.
Imperfect. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction, Jennifer. That was really kind. I appreciate it. I kind of like that. I'm like the expert of imperfection. I'll take it. So, just a little bit of backstory here. Like you said, enemy is perfection over progress. It took me a while in my career to learn this one, so maybe I can teach in 10 minutes what it took me literally like 15 years to figure out. So I started in the physical product world where people obsess over every single fine detail of design until things are absolutely perfect. Just hours and hours of sketches and carefully crafting CAD, turning things into 3D prints, lots of building and iteration. I wanted to say 3D printing in CAD way before it was cool, because I have to say that. And it required just, like I said, tons of hours of iteration until perfection of every design, until products and ultimately product suites were developed. So it's truly a labor of love to develop these products. It requires so much emotion, personal attachment, and energy to build something that's truly amazing. The reality, though, is that only 1 out of every 20 products is successful in the market. And I wish I could tell you I'm some sort of secret genius that hacked the process to get 20 out of 20 success, but really my track record isn't so different. And as somebody who's helped over 70 products get to market, let me tell you, it generally hurts a lot. It kind of sucks to be an innovator. And the reality is that innovation requires a little bit of timing and luck and things that are outside of your control to succeed. So you fail a lot. So you think you fail, and you think that because you failed, you suck. And like I said, it's not such a great place to fall into. But there's really a hack, and I wish I had discovered this hack way earlier, and I wanted to share it with you here. It's got two parts. So the first part is really this. My whole career, I was stuck in this 100% success mindset. I had no idea that such a failure statistic existed. So I thought my job was to make everything happen in one shot. And if I didn't, it was my fault for failing. So there's some natural consequences of that. It means I have to be in control. I must know what I'm doing. And ultimately, that leads me to a place where I can't have a growth mindset because I'm not making the room to grow. So what if I knew there was a 5% chance of being right? How would it have changed my mindset, my efforts, my outcomes? Perhaps I'd make bolder moves or pay more attention to my surroundings or reacted differently. What if I knew that I was actually asking the question, could this work? As opposed to, how do I make this work? So let's look at the classic tower challenge as an example. Let's just say you are asked by your boss to make the tallest tower you can out of spaghetti and marshmallows. I don't know if you guys have ever done this one before, but it's a personal favorite of mine. I'm always up for a spaghetti tower challenge. And so you and your team carefully craft a spaghetti tower because you're confident you can reach a reasonable height. It's unlikely to fall. And because the worst case scenario would be that your tower falls and you fail. And you've got this 100% mindset that you have to absolutely make sure that it doesn't fall. Well, you actually find out that your boss didn't bestow this task upon you because your grand ability to make spaghetti towers. There's actually a whole bunch of spaghetti towers. In fact, 19 other groups, and most of their spaghetti towers, well, they're taller than yours. And one of them, really kicks ass, and they got a really, really cool medal for it. So now you tried your hardest and you're feeling about as big as your mediocre spaghetti tower, and it feels like the world's against you. Had you known it was a competition, had you known there was a 5% chance of success, had you known winner takes home a really awesome medal, maybe you would have worked a little bit differently. And just because really what this gets to is just because you can't see all of the data points doesn't mean that they don't exist. And I'm stealing that quote. That's one of my favorite quotes from our advisor, Janice Frazier. And what that means is innovators, when you're building something new, you're going against status quo and other ways of solving the problems, a lot of unknown. Rather than feeling the pressure of having to have all of the answers with your idea, with that 5% mindset, feel the pressure to ask all the right questions if this could be the right opportunity. Changing your mindset from how will this work to could this work takes the pressure off of you as an innovator and gives you the freedom to explore solutions more freely. Now, innovation leaders, you have to create the space for innovators to try ideas. You hear 5% success rate? That's real. So we have to put you in a position where you can enable enough people to take a 5% chance of success, and that you can bet with all of these that you'll achieve the outcomes that you need, and you'll actually be able to modernize your efforts and keep up with the speed of innovation and move with the world as needed to stay relevant. And here at Productable, we help leaders set up portfolios so that they can encourage experimentation without feeling the risk of the individual innovator. So beyond the creativity of the innovator and the success of the innovator, the leadership the mindset of both really creates that culture of innovation. So to really sum that up, essentially, when comparing the two ways of working, that 5% mindset creates the way that airmen are empowered to solve any problem, where the 100% mindset just puts them under the pressure to make it work when it probably won't. That 5% success rate is that 5% mindset is more successful and frankly more fun. It reduces the stress and it creates a team and a culture of innovation. So that was part one. There's always other spaghetti towers. So the second part is, like I said, the 100% mindset. We tend to put our heads down and get to work because we want to get it right. And so that 100% mindset puts us down a rabbit hole and puts us in a place for failure where it feels deep and personal. So I'd like to establish a little more of a natural experience of the 5%ers. There's an unwritten rule that says do not spend more than 2 hours working on an idea until you get some sort of feedback. In this world, the person assumes they're wrong. They're willing to listen to those around them, listen to the market, listen to unexpected decisions and ideas, and they'll pivot their ideas 20 times and they'll overcome those 19 failures to get a success. So the fun part about this one is now you're building up a band of supporters, and win or fail, you got a team there that's excited to be there no matter what happens. And failure is more mutual and victory is so much more fun to celebrate. And when you innovate this way, you end up creating something that you had no idea was even possible. Really, really mind-blowing wins. So that was part 2. Remember the rabbit hole. Always get feedback after 2 hours. And it's not a hard and fast rule. Use it with judgment and think of it as a way of working on understanding your market over what's in your mind. So this by no means is perfect. It's a little secret that I've discovered in my career. People tend to be really good at developing ideas, or they tend to be really good at 5%ing. Doing both is a skill that requires serious refinement. So with that in mind, when you build your team, find your rabbit hole or find your 5%er and be willing to work with each other and figure it all out. Like I said, I used to be a rabbit holer that was completely unaware of this concept. And it wasn't until I worked for Mark Cuban that I could see the 5% world. And he pushed me to think this way. I really didn't want to believe it. And had it been anyone of lower stature, I don't know how well I would have listened. I'm pretty stubborn. So this was one of the hardest mentality changes I've ever made. It took me years of adjustment, but it's been very, very rewarding. So with all of that, that was my 5% experiment. There's a 5% chance that this was valuable, and I didn't overthink it. I didn't perfect it, just came to throw something out here and see what sticks. So with all of that in mind, we're at the end. I'd love to hear what you think and answer any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Love that talk. And I love how you've also brought this mindset into Productable. So it's been a really fun experiment that we've been doing as a team. So going to questions, we have Colonel Waynick in the house. He's threw a question in chat there. I've seen where customers can't tell you what they want, but will know it when they see it. What's a good strategy to start with knowing that you'll have plenty of failures at the beginning without losing the customer?
I love that. That's a great question. I think one of the biggest things is getting the customer on board with being on the same team with you, getting them to recognize the 5% mindset that we're going to experiment together, learn this together, and that we're all passionate about the outcome of figuring it out together. When you present ideas and solutions to the customer at the beginning, they're very lightweight. They're very iterative. They're very, tell me what's wrong. Tell me what doesn't feel right. Getting all of that feedback that we can. And then we're going to learn a lot together, and based on their feedback and responses, we can find the way. So I think it's really bringing them on the journey and not overthinking the feedback process with them.
I love this comment from Chris. To add to that, he said, they may not know what they want, but they really know what they don't want. To add to that, Rachel.
Yeah, no, I love that too. Those gut reactions are really helpful of finding the way.
So we had an anonymous question come through here, and it's really an interesting one to think about, kind of in terms of Air Force culture, and being incentivized to do your job and only your job. So this person is saying that it's a hard environment to feel okay with failure and only 5% success. So how do we do that if we're afraid that it will hurt our career?
That's such a great question. And that's where we want to end this whole rabbit hole mindset. So if you are having to do that by yourself and you're trying to figure that out by yourself, that's where you end up in the place of putting yourself at the most risk. When we're getting all of that feedback, can we talk to our boss about how we create that 5% environment? Can we talk to others? Can we get people on board with the idea that maybe we could work differently and actually start to test things together, and get your boss to buy into this idea. Show them this webinar. We'll have it on YouTube. Show them, talk about the portfolio way, talk about this way that it actually drives more success and outcomes. You can always talk to us here at Productable. We're more than excited to help bring this mentality. But I think the biggest thing is finding your band of supporters who want to do this and go in on it together and work through the challenges together and not do it by yourself.
That's a great thoughts there. And we have seen that successfully happen in some of the smaller groups that we're working with. So it is possible, right? So one more question. I have actually thought this myself, because as I mentioned, we're doing this 5% mindset at Productable, right? And kind of experimenting with that. And you always say, only spend 2 hours on something and then get feedback. So this person says, sorry, I just don't think 2 hours works. How can you accomplish anything meaningful in that time?
I love that. I was the biggest naysayer of this. It completely blew my mind when I was working for Mark and he would tell me, like, essentially the way, just so you know, like giving you a little backstory, he would push me to get feedback from him on something. And if I put too much detail into it, he's a really busy guy. He has a lot of other things going on. I couldn't get the answers I was looking for. So one, I found from our relationship that I was only really able to get just a little bit of feedback from him. So if I tried to solve the whole entire world, I was only going to get this understood. And so that made me realize, rather than working through the weeds in 20 hours of work, I had to quickly understand what was my biggest assumption, what is my biggest thing that I don't understand, and really focus on that and prioritize that one piece of information that's keeping me up at night and work through that at, I would say, 20% understanding and show it to them. Hey, this is roughly what I'm thinking about this one big assumption. And then based on that, get that feedback. And then once that assumption's gone and work through, then you can work through your next one. So I think the biggest thing is pushing yourself to prioritize what your unknowns are in knocking those out. Because the chances are that if those are your unknowns, then somebody is going to completely change your perspective and skew everything that to a different direction. And if you don't get that up front, then it turns out that next 20 hours of work was completely wasted because you didn't get that up front. And so that's what it's really working towards. Jennifer, since I can tell that's a little bit of your question too, you can tell me how I did and ask it.
No, totally makes sense. So I want to squeeze one last question in. We're right now at the 20-minute mark. So I thought this was a fun one. So there's rabbit holers on my team. How can I help them?
Well, it's like there's phases of being a rabbit holer. First, you have to be aware that you're a rabbit holer, and then you have to actually admit that you have a problem, right? So, and want to do something about it. There's those steps, and so I think the biggest thing is creating awareness. So like I said, one, you can show the webinar around to different people on your team and get them to see that this is a problem and what happens. And then based on that, it's really up to them to want to come around and change their ways of working. And so showing them the benefit of 2-hour feedback, showing them the benefit of hearing other ideas and making sure that they could reduce their stress and starting to bring them into that fold of what happens, how their life is easier, how it's just better when you can think in that 5% space. And so there's not an easy solution other than trying to create that influence over time to make them see that they want to do the change and then willing to try it in small steps.
Well, thank you so much for all of this, Rachel. I feel like I could ask you a million more questions and pick your brain on this topic, but we're at time. So I just want to thank everyone for joining this webinar. We will be hosting 2 more talks in this Invisible Enemies of Innovation quick talk series. I put a link in chat if you want to sign up for the next one. Otherwise, yeah, we will see everyone soon. And thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It was fun. Really appreciate it.